What if it is our imagined familiarity with God that's getting in the way?
One of my core convictions these days is that all good theology is grounded in gratitude and humility. First, gratitude for the fact that we even exist, that we're here to ask questions about ourselves and our existence. And second, humility. Humility to know that we can and should reach out for our Creator, try to understand God and what God has spoken to us, but also the humility to always hold that with an open hand. And one of the quotes that I think really gets at this comes from the physicist, astrophysicist Georges Lemaître, sometimes known as the father of the Big Bang. He's one of the first scientists to do the math to understand that the universe was expanding, and that therefore, theoretically, that meant the universe could be traced back to what he called a primordial atom where it all began. But anyway, he says this: as far as I can see, such a theory as mine remains entirely outside any metaphysical or religious question. It leaves the materialist free to deny any transcendental being, but for the believer, it removes any attempt at familiarity with God. Now, one of the things you have to understand is that Lemaître was a Catholic priest. He was a believer, but he understood that what we are learning, what we understand about the universe tells us there is a fundamental gap between us and God. Not one that can't be bridged. That's what incarnation is all about for those of us who believe. But that means we always hold all of our imagination, all of our language, all of our theology open-handed with humility. We are grasping at the divine, and that is an incredibly beautiful thing.
Pete Holmes is a comedian, a good one. Sometimes where our best theology comes from, by the way. But he has a bit where he says, we are all like characters in a novel trying to figure out the author while we're still in the novel. So imagine Aragorn and his elfish friend Orlando trying to understand J.R.R. Tolkien from within the world of Middle-earth. Like, can they ever see all the way to a professor at Oxford University writing a novel from the gates of Mordor? Part of what I like about that as an image is I think they absolutely can learn a lot about Tolkien from within the world of the Lord of the Rings, right? Like, you can get a sense of him from his story, how it unfolds. You look at what drives the narrative and how the story pulls together in the end. I think you do get a sense of the author. And in that sense, yes, the characters might actually know something about their creator. And yet, the idea that they could reconstruct our world from theirs is absurdly clarifying for me. I'm a character in a story that God is writing. I can observe divine fingerprints in the story as it unfolds around me. I can even understand something of the nature of my author expressed around me. But as Lemaître says, any aspiration at familiarity with God is as absurd as a character composed of letters on a page trying to comprehend the living, breathing universe that you and I inhabit. Now, as a Christian, I, of course, also believe that God entered into the story with me. So God has given us Jesus so that everything we need to know about the divine can be seen in his life. Jesus shows us what God would look like on the page with us. And that means we can indeed know what it means to live lives that flow with rather than against the universe that's been created for us. But even that is God expressed inside the story. It is divine self-disclosure within the confines of our limitations. In other words, I believe I can discern God from within the story. I can follow the way of Jesus in my life. I can choose a path that counts on grace to draw me closer toward the divine origin of all things. I can even experience the inexhaustible love that is God in tangible ways. But I can still never peer outside the universe as it's written to fully comprehend God as God. It's beyond me. Perhaps you could say this: I could draw within a plank's width of God, the smallest distance possible in the universe, and there would still be an infinitely wide, fundamental category difference between myself and the divine. Because I exist and God doesn't. Now, hear me out. I'm not abandoning my faith in front of you in real time here. It's not a crisis. I don't need an intervention right now. At least I don't think so. I'm actually exposing the core of my faith, which is that I think everything that exists is created in God. I think everything that exists is created by God. Which is why I am with Paul when he says, all things created, all things in heaven and on earth, things visible and invisible, even things like thrones and rulers and authorities and powers, absolutely anything that has ever existed has been created through God and for God. And therefore God, specifically, he's talking about Christ here, is before all things, and in Christ all things hold together. But what a passage like that says to me, when I read that not only are all things created by God, they are held together in God. Sustained by God is how some translations will render this Greek word sunestemi. When I read that, what I realize is that God is not another thing in the universe with me. God is, in the words of Paul Tillich, the very ground of being. Maybe we could even say this: God is the name we give to what we experience as existence.